Hi, hello students. Welcome to Indian Tech Guru for you. Let us move on to the next topic. The next topic is data transfer instructions. Data transfer instructions. So, as far as the processor is concerned, the processor needs to perform several different types of instructions based on the instruction format. So, already we have seen several different instruction formats. So, initially we have seen an instruction format with an I mode, indirect address mode. After that, in the previous class, we have seen an instruction format with address modes, different types of address modes, and how to retrieve the effective address in different types of addressing modes. So, any processor needs to perform several different operations. One type of operations are data transfer instructions. So, as far as the data transfer instructions are concerned, here the typical data transfer instructions are load instruction. Load instruction is going to load the content from the memory address. Store instruction is going to store the content from processor register to memory address. Move is going to move the content from one register to another register or from one memory location to another memory location. Exchange instruction is going to perform the swap operation between the contents of two registers or between the contents of two memory locations. So, IN instruction is going to perform the input operation. Out is going to perform the output operation. Push is going to perform the push operation, that is inserting an element into the stack. Pop is going to perform the pop operation, that is deleting an element from the stack. So, already we have seen several such these type of instructions in assembly language code. So, however, the instructions will be differing based on the different types of processors. One processor may contain a set of instructions, another processor may contain another set of instructions, as well as the number of instructions will be different among different types of processors. So, these are the basic data transfer instructions that are needed in all types of processors. So, this is the mnemonic code for performing the specific operation. However, in the previous class we discussed that there will be several different types of addressing modes available. So, whenever we are going to perform a particular operation, so based on the given instruction format, so first of all we need to determine which addressing mode we are going to use and retrieve the effective address and then perform the particular operation. Now, the convention for implementing different addressing modes is shown in this particular table. For example, assume that we are performing the load operation with all of the addressing modes we have seen in the previous class. So, initially, as far as the direct address is concerned, so if it is direct address instruction format, then we will be implementing the load instruction like this: LD space ADR. Here ADR represents the address of the memory location. So, we are going to write the assembly convention like this: LD ADR, LD space ADR. So, it represents that we are using the direct address and we are going to retrieve the content from the memory location and assign it to the accumulator register. So, if you use the indirect address mode, then how we need to represent is LD @ we have to use @ ADR. Then in case of the indirect address we already know. So, if the instruction format contains the address 501, then in 501 in main memory we have another address 625, and in 625 actually the data will be residing. if the data is 10, then 10 will be residing in 625. So that's why how it looks like: memory of address and then memory of address. So this memory of address is 625 and M of 625 is 10. This 10 will be assigned to accumulator register. So that is how indirect address will work. So to specify the assembly convention for indirect address, @ symbol must be used before the address. How to represent the relative address is, you have to use a dollar symbol, and we have seen 3 different types of relative addresses. So in this type of relative address, we are adding the content of program counter to address PC plus ADR, M of PC plus ADR. So it is going to retrieve that content and assign to accumulator register. So if you want to use the immediate operand, then we need not to have any address location. We are going to assign the number. Here NBR represents a number. So the constant value is directly assigned to the accumulator register. So to specify it is a constant number and no address is needed, we have to use a hash symbol. Coming to the index addressing, the assembly convention is LD space ADR of X. You need to pass the X value within the parenthesis. Then it is going to calculate the effective address by adding the address as well as the X value, and then retrieve the content from the memory location and store in accumulator register. So if it is a register direct addressing mode, just we are going to move the content of the register to the accumulator register. We have seen in the previous class. So register, in case of register indirect mode, you have to use parenthesis for the register variable. Then the content of that particular register location inside of the memory location will be moved to the accumulator register. So coming to the auto increment, initially the content will be moved to the accumulator register and then R1 value will be incremented. So as far as the auto decrement is concerned, initially R1 value will be decremented and then the content of M of R1 is assigned to the accumulator register. So here the important thing to remember is for performing operations with different types of addressing modes, we need to use these symbolic structures. Not only in load command, but also in all other commands also we need to use the same naming convention for implementing different types of addressing modes. So what are the conventions? For direct address, just specify the address. For indirect address, use the @ symbol. For relative address, use the dollar symbol. For immediate operand, use the hash symbol. No address is needed. For index addressing, use the index register within parentheses after the address. For register mode, just use the register value. For register indirect mode, use the register value within parentheses. For auto increment, use the register value within parentheses and then add a plus symbol after the register. For auto decrement, use a minus symbol before the register and give the register value within parentheses. So this is the naming convention. For specifying different types of addressing modes. So those are the data transfer instructions. Now let us move on to the data manipulation instructions. So data manipulation instructions means we are going to perform specific operations on the data. So what are the different types of operations we need to perform? We need to perform the arithmetic operations, logical and bit manipulation operations, and as well as shift operations. So for performing these operations, we need arithmetic instructions, logical and bit manipulation instructions, as well as the shift instructions. Coming to the arithmetic instructions, what are the different arithmetic instructions? Here you can see already we have seen plenty of instructions from starting the assembly language codes for different types of instructions. However, these are the instructions that are supported by several different processors. So increment INC, increment is going to increment the value content of the accumulator register. Decrement is going to decrement the content of the accumulator register. Add is going to perform the addition operation between two numbers. Subtract is going to perform the subtraction of two numbers. Multiplication, mul is going to perform the multiplication between two numbers. Div is going to perform the division of division between two numbers. Add with carry is going to determine the carry also after the addition is performed. Subtract with borrow is going to perform the subtract operation with the borrow value. We need one additional bit for add with carry as well as subtract with borrow. And then negative, we already know 2's complement implementation, NUZ. So these are all the arithmetic instructions that are available in a basic processor. So coming to the logical, how these operations are carried out, we already know. We have seen in the previous classes. So coming to the next type of instructions, logical and bit manipulation instructions. Clear is going to assign 0 value to the entire register. Complement is going to perform the complement operation. It is going to make zeros into ones, ones into zeros. AND is going to perform the logical AND operation. OR is going to perform the logical OR operation. Exclusive OR, XOR is going to perform the logical exclusive OR operation. Clear carry is going to clear the carry bit. Set carry is going to set the 1 value to the carry bit. Complement carry is going to change the content of the carry bit. If it is 0, it will make it 1. If it is 1, it will make it 0. Enable interrupt is going to enable the interrupts. So we have seen what is an interrupt and how the interrupts will be implemented and how to perform the interrupt operation using the interrupt service routine. DA is going to perform the disable interrupts. So interrupts are disabled whenever one interrupt is going on, another interrupt cannot come. That is why we are going to disable the interrupt until unless the current interrupt has been completed. Coming to the shift instructions, already we have seen plenty of times. So about the shift instructions, there will be logical shift right, logical shift left, arithmetic shift right, arithmetic shift left. How to perform these operations we have seen in the previous classes. So here instead of using circular, here it is used as rotate right, rotate left. So rotate right through carry, rotate left through carry. These are all nothing but the circular left, right, circular left. Circular right, circular left. The naming convention is different. So rotate right through carry, rotate left through carry. So using the carry bit, perform the rotate operation. Using the carry bit, perform the rotate operation either to the right or to the left. How these operations are performed, we have already seen in the previous classes. So these are the manipulation instructions, data manipulation instructions. So, and then we need to have the program control instructions. Program control instructions are nothing but whenever we are going to write a program, then sometimes we may need to transfer the control to a subroutine or subtask, and sometimes we may need the looping statements. Sometimes we may need the branching statements. So for those different types of instructions, we need the program control instructions. So here we can see the program control instructions. Program control instructions. The first instruction is branch. So branch means unconditional branching. Unconditional branching. So unconditional branching is going to transfer the control directly from one specific location to another location. So jump will also do the same logic. It is also going to transfer the control from one location to another location. Skip is going to skip the current instruction and then transfer the control to next instruction. The next instruction will not be carried out, it will be skipped. Call is going to call a subroutine or subtask. We have seen how a subroutine is implemented in assembly language code and how we are going to manipulate with the subroutines. Return is going to return the control from subroutine or subtask to the main program. Compare is going to compare two values whether they are equal or not equal. So the program in assembly language code to compare two numbers also we have seen in the previous classes. Test is going to perform the AND operation, that is mask operation. So to insert zeros in the specific location. So that also we have seen in the previous classes. So test is used to set or clear certain flags. So these are the basic program control instructions that are used in a particular processor to perform various operations. So how these operations will work, we have already seen in the previous classes. So the naming may be different, however the operation is same. And coming to the next topic is status bit conditions. So this is somewhat new concept which we have not discussed previously. However, this is not that much difficult. So what is this is there will be several status bits in the processor, several status bits which are going to represent the status of different implementations or different registers available in the computer system. So to have the current position of these status flags, we need a status register. The status register is going to actually store the various values of these status flags. Sometimes it may also be called as a processor status word, PSW, processor status word, and it may also be called as processor status register, processor status word or processor status register. So there will be several different types of processor status flags we need to maintain. So what are the present values of these different types of status flags will be stored inside of this processor state register. So what are the basic common flags in processor state word? Or the first one is carry. The first one is carry bit. Set to 1 if the carry out of the arithmetic logic unit is 1. Carry bit is set to 1 if the carry out of the arithmetic logic unit, is 1, then we are going to set the carry flag to 1. So here you can see in this diagram the status flag circuit. We are giving from F0 to F7 to perform a specific operation. After the operation is performed, then you can see here C8 is the carry bit. If the carry bit is 1, then we are going to set the carry flag to 1. Next is sign flag, S flag. So generally the sign bit will be most significant bit of the arithmetic logic unit. So that is represented by F7. F7 is the most significant bit in an 8-bit register. So the most significant bit of the arithmetic logic unit's output is the sign bit. So we already know how to specify the sign bit. 0 represents the positive, 1 represents the negative. And then 0. So 0 is represented by Z. So after from F0 to F7, if all the 8 bits check for 0 output. If all the 8 bits are zeros, then set this 0 flag to 1. Okay. So if if all the output register values are all zeros, 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0, then Z value will be set to 1. If these values are other than 0, not 1 but other than 0, for example 0 1 0 0 0 1 0 0, then Z value will be 0. 1 0 1 0 1 0 1 0, then Z value will be 0. Okay. So if all the values are 0, then Z value will be set to 1. If other than 0, then Z value will be set to 0. So another important common flag which we are going to use is the overflow condition. So overflow condition, to check the overflow condition, so already we know how to check the overflow condition. So we are going to add we are going to perform the exclusive OR operation for the most significant bits. Then, so if it set to 1, if there is an overflow, how the overflow condition is checked, we have already discussed previously. So if there are 2 zeros, then we should get a 0 in the result. If there are 2 ones, then we should get a 1 in the result to the most significant bit, then that's okay. So if there is a 0 or 1, if there are 2 zeros, if you get 1, and if there are 2 ones, if you get 0, then the sign symbol will be changed. So during this particular operation, we are going to get an overflow. We have discussed in the first unit how to recognize whether there is an overflow occurred or not. So if overflow occurs, then set the V flag to 1. 1 represents overflow occurred, 0 represents overflow didn't occurred. Okay. So we already know all these different types of operations. However, here what we are doing, we are placing all these different types of flags into a single processor status register. Single processor status register. How we are placing? We are placing it as V flag, Z flag, S flag, C flag, and storing the content of these different flags into a single register. What is that register is called? Processor status register or processor status word. Now, how the values are set? If the carry is 1, if the output carry is 1, set C to 1, otherwise set C to 0. If the most significant bit F7 is 1, then set the sign bit to 1, otherwise set the sign bit to 0. If all of the values of the output arithmetic logic units outputs all are 0, then set Z to 1, otherwise set Z to 0. If overflow has occurred, then set V to 1, otherwise V to 0. So at a particular time, the values of VZ, SC may be like this: 1 0 1 0. What does it mean? What does it mean? Overflow has occurred. All the values of the output of the ALU are not zeros. It is a negative number. There is no carry out. So this is the information that the processor shall have about the arithmetic logic unit. Accordingly, it is going to perform. It is going to carry out the next operation or stop the current operation if it performed any illegal operation. So like this, we are going to control the different types of operations based on these flags. So all these flags we already know. However, here what we are doing, we are clubbing them as a single entity known as the processor status register or processor status word. So it is called as status bit conditions, and you can see the status flag circuit here. So how the operations are performed. Next comes the conditional branch instructions. So conditional branch instructions are going to be performed whenever we are going to branch the operation, transfer the control from one location to another location. So here we are going to discuss the conditional branch instructions based on the values of Z, C, S, V, which we have seen now in case of the conditional status bits. So when we are going to perform the branch statement is determined. So branch if 0 means if Z is equal to 1, then perform the branch statement. It is represented as BZ. Branch if not 0 means when the Z value is 0, then perform the branch and it is represented as BNZ. Branch if carry means if the carry bit is 1, then perform the branch. So what is branch? You already know. Branch means transfer the control from current position to another position. So if the C value is 1, then perform the branch. It is represented as BC. So branch if no carry, if C value is 0, then perform the branch represented as BNC. Branch if plus, if the sign bit is 0, then perform the branch statement represented as BP. Branch if minus, if S value is 1, then perform the branch, it is represented as BM. Branch if overflow, if overflow flag V is equal to 1, then perform the branch represented as BV. Branch if no overflow, if V is equal to 0, then perform the branch represented as BNB. So based on the status word, values, so we are going to determine whether to perform the branch or do not perform the branch. Similarly, based on the compare conditions also, we are going to perform the branch. How these compare conditions occur? So if you consider the unsigned means only positive numbers, then branch if higher means if the value of A is greater than the value of B, then perform the branch. BHI, branch if higher means BHI, take this I, BHI. Next, if A is greater than or equal to B, branch if higher or equal, then it is represented as BHE, take this E, BHE, branch if higher or equal. A is greater than or equal to B. If A is less than B, branch if lower, BLO, take this O, BLO, mnemonic. Next, branch if lower or equal, if A is less than or equal to B, then the mnemonic is BLOE, take this O, take this E, BLOE. Next, branch if equal, if A is equal to B, then perform the branch statement represented as BE. Branch if not equal, if A not equal to B, then branch if not equal, BNE, represented as BNE. So these are the mnemonics and how to when to perform the operation based on the value of A and B. So if you compare the signed numbers means it may be positive or it may be negative also. Then the conditions are like this, the mnemonics are like this. If A is greater than B, branch if greater than, BGT. So branch if greater than or equal to, A is greater than or equal to B, then branch if greater than or equal, BGE. So if A is less than B, then branch if less than, BLT. If A is less than or equal to B, branch if less than or equal BLE. If A is equal to B, branch if equal BE. If A not equal to B, branch if not equal BNE. So these are the mnemonics for representing whenever signed compare conditions are there. So if you observe here, these two operations and these two operations are same. So it means that to compare two values, let it be signed or unsigned. Let it be signed or unsigned. So if A is equal to B, then we are going to perform the branch if equal, and if A not equal to B, then we are going to perform the branch if not equal. So just we are going to compare the either unsigned or signed numbers, that doesn't matter. The mnemonics for branch if equal, branch if not equal are same in both the unsigned compare conditions as well as signed compare conditions. So these are the conditional branch instructions which are implemented in a particular processor. The next concept is subroutine call and return. So already we have seen what is a subroutine and how to perform a subroutine implementation using the assembly language code. We have seen a program also in assembly language code how to perform the subroutine call. So here once again we are going to review once again how this occurs. So when we are going to use the subroutine calls, to call the subroutines, jump to subroutines, branch to subroutine, branch and save return address. Okay. So initially we are going to call the subroutine, and then we are going to jump to the subroutine. We are going to branch to subroutine and branch and save return address. Okay. So how this operation is performed? How this operation is performed, we already know. So as far as the procedure call is concerned, that is subroutine call is concerned, we need to perform these operations. So what are these operations? If you use the stack, if you use a stack, then just we are going to perform the pop operation in the stack. If you use a memory location, then we are going to store the content of the processor, content of the program counter in M of SP. Sorry, we are going to store the content of the program counter in M of stack pointer, and then assign the effective address to program counter. So here we are actually implementing the code using the stacks. How to implement the code for call, how to implement the code for return. So how to implement the for call? Just decrement the stack pointer and then store the program counter inside of the M of SP, and then assign effective address to program counter. So this effective address is nothing but the address of the subroutine. Then the control is transferred to the subroutine. So we are going to execute the subroutine call. After executing subroutine call, we have to return to the main program. So when returning to the main program, so the content of M of SP contains the previous program counter. So store the previous program counter to PC and then increment the stack pointer, because here we have decremented the stack pointer. Here we are going to increment the stack pointer. So in the previous classes we discussed how to perform the subroutine call using the memory locations. Now here we discussed how to perform the subroutine call using the stack. Next comes the program interrupt. So program interrupt, we have already discussed what is an interrupt and how to perform the interrupt service routine, how to execute the interrupt service routine, and we have seen the assembly language program also, how to implement the interrupts. So however, we have seen only the external interrupts. External interrupts. Now we are going to bifurcate the interrupts. There are three different types of interrupts. So external interrupts, internal interrupts, as well as the software interrupts. So whatever the interrupts we have seen previously are external interrupts. External interrupts means those interrupts are actually generated by the input output devices. So basically the external interrupts are four different categories. The first category, which we have seen previously, are generated by the IO device for the data transfer request or data transfer complete. Whenever the data transfer request is there, then so it is going to generate an interrupt. Whenever the data transfer is completed, then it is going to generate an interrupt. So in addition to that, there are three different categories of external interrupts. Another thing is timeout. Timeout means, for example, time is set. If time is set for to implement a particular operation and the time is over, then it is going to generate an interrupt and send the signal to the processor. Similarly, whenever there is a power failure, then also it is going to send a signal to the processor by generating an interrupt. So these are the three basic external interrupts. So we need not to discuss about the operator interrupt. So next comes to the coming to the internal interrupts. These internal interrupts are called as traps. Internal interrupts are caused by the currently running program. So previously we have seen the interrupts that are generated by the IO device, but now interrupts can also be generated by the currently running program. So how the currently running program is going to generate the interrupts? During the register or stack overflow. So in case of stacks, we have seen that sometimes the stack may be overflown. So that is, the memory location is not available. However, you may try to push the value, then the stack will be overflown. Similarly, register overflow. Register overflow means if the result generated may be 32-bit data, however the register is of 16 bits, then an overflow occurs. You cannot accommodate 32 bits into 16-bit register. So then it causes the internal interrupt. And divide by 0, for example, there is a code such as int a is equal to 20 in C language, int a is equal to 20, comma b is equal to 0, and int c, and you may say that c is equal to a by b. So what is the result? 20 by 0. 20 by 0 is not defined. You are going to get the infinite value which is not defined. So then what you are going to determine? So you are going to get a divide by 0 error, runtime error, divide by 0 error, because you cannot have such an equation 20 by 0. And opcode violation. Opcode violation means, assume that there are 32 different operation codes and you are giving more value than this, then opcode violation will occur. And protection violation. Protection violation means some of the registers may be reserved by the processor to which the user should not access. However, if the user tries to access those registers, then a protection violation interrupt occurs. So these are all the interrupts that are going to occur by the currently running program. If the currently running program is doing some illegal operation, then we are going to get these internal interrupts. These internal interrupts are called as the traps. And the last one is the software interrupts. So software interrupts are actually generated during the implementation of the supervisor call. So supervisor call means actually there are two different modes of execution by the processor. They are supervisor mode and the user mode. Okay. So the operating system is also a group of programs. Okay. Operating system is also a group of programs. So this operating system is going to execute the programs in supervisory mode. The operating system programs are executed in supervisory mode, and the user programs will be executing in user mode, and there will be continuous switching between the supervisory mode and the user mode. Okay. If sometimes what happens is the user may try to execute some of the user programs in supervisory mode. Then an interrupt occurs. Such type of interrupt is called as the software interrupt. Okay. So for example, you are implementing a particular operation in a particular operating system. So in operating system memory management, you are going to implement the paging algorithm. Assume like that, paging algorithm. So this paging algorithm is within the operating system, and it must be executed in supervisory mode. Okay. So however, if the user tries to access this paging algorithm and tries to modify the content of the paging algorithm, then a software interrupt occurs. So like this, there are three different categories of interrupts available. So what are they? They are external interrupts, which we have seen previously. What are the interrupts we have seen previously? They are called as external interrupts. And internal interrupts, the internal interrupts are generated by the currently running program. And the software interrupts are generated whenever there is some illegal access during the supervisory mode as well as the user mode execution of the instructions by the processor. So that's all for today's class. Hope you understand the logic. That's all for now.